At that point, when I was 6, my mother was not in my life yet. So, I was told that my mother was dead, that she passed away when I was born. And so when my dad died at 6, I pretty much thought I was an orphan. I thought I was living with his parents. So my father's parent, my grandparents took over as my legal guardians when he passed when I was 6. I had no knowledge of my mom, and lived with them, and they were grieving heavy. That was their firstborn son, and he had two sisters that lived right next door. We all lived sort of in this little triangle. And so from there, they all rallied around me and took care of me in the most beautiful way. I had 7 first cousins, 2 aunts, and we I had a beautiful childhood. Of course, I miss my dad. Of course, it was like, oh, I don't have parents, and there were moments where, of course, that was very sad, right? To think you have no parents, but to be surrounded by people that just loved me, loved on me so hard. It was beautiful. And then I found out when I was 18 that my mother was alive. And that's when I started a relationship with her. But my childhood, my mom wasn't there.
Was that their agreement?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think, when he adopted me, it was that, she gave up her parental rights and she wasn't going to be a part of my life. But he did communicate the address where we would be, things like that. And my mom had a boyfriend for about 10 years who really pushed her to go find me and contact me. And she was so worried that she would come into my life and that it would just turn my young life upside down, and she just didn't feel fit, or she didn't there was a lot of things that my mom struggled with, that kept her from reaching out all of those years.
And so what happened once you got connected?
So I reached out to her. I got her information, and I reached out and I made that contact with her. And it was Mother's Day.
Mm.
And I think I was 18, I was maybe 19 years old. It was sophomore year in college. And I lived maybe an hour and a half away from Houston. She was living in Houston, Texas. I contacted her, and immediately she said, "Come to Houston today. This is Mother's Day." She said, "I have got to meet you. Come now." And I was like, okay, here I am for 18, 19 years thinking that I don't even have a mother. It's Mother's Day. And now I'm going to meet my mom. Oh my gosh, how terrifying it was. But I went and met her that day. And oh my gosh. Talk about pivotal moments. I know you asked that in the beginning. That day changed everything.
What did it change for you?
I mean, by definition, orphan as a child, but at that point, I was no longer an orphan.
Hmm.
And I had a parent, a living parent. And I'm getting emotional because it's her birthday this week, but
Oh,
oh, it was, it changed how I felt about myself. It changed, you know, what I thought I needed in this life. I didn't think, I didn't have a mom. So I was like, I'm fine. I don't need one. And when I met her, I was like, oh, yeah, I do need a mom,
yeah, yeah,
you know?
yeah. I would imagine it also helped to answer some questions for you,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, about yourself, because there's something about seeing the person from whom you entered the world, or through whom you entered the
Oh,
world, and seeing yourself in that person.
yeah.
Um, I I had a relationship with my mother during my upbringing. My mother, as I mentioned, struggled with mental illness, but we saw her every week. And I attribute my love for culture and art and to my mother, Matilda. But I didn't really get to know my mother until my late teens, starting in my late teens. And I grew up as this person, this young girl who lived within the construct that I had, which was my father. And, my mother was mentally ill. And that was all kind of like a part of my story, was that I didn't have a mother. Even though I had her,
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I had a mother. And there were some walls that went up because of that I now see as walls. But at the time, I was, I guess, just walking with the story that was laid out for me. So I didn't really feel any yearning for um, my mother at the time. I felt I had to have acted that out in some way or another, but I wasn't conscious of that. I was like, I live in a nice house and I have, and I listen to jazz every day. We have dinner at the table every day. And yeah, there are things going on, but if I listed out my list of things that I needed, my mother would not at the time have been one of them. Pivotal moments in that
Oh,
relationship. Let's talk about that.
she, I told you she was fun. I told you she was smart, but my mom, like the way that I carry myself now, I feel like even in that 10 years, I learned so much from her. And like her friends, my friends that knew my mom would be like, oh my gosh, your mannerisms, things that you do are so much like your mom. Because she was just so uh, a- appropriate with everything. She knew when we would go to restaurants, she was the one that knew all the things to order for everyone at the table. And she wore the, cutest outfits and she was fashionable and she was, all these things. The pivotal moments that stick out to me are the ones that stung, right? That hurt. And they typically, for us, would involve drinking. So my mom and I loved to drink. And it would be this thing like we would go out and the drinking helped us be honest with one another. It helped us have a good time. But then that would come, all of the emotion would just kind of bubble up. And we would have these just, you know, knockout arguments that would set us back a month. We do all this work thinking we're getting closer and we're doing great. And we would just, oh my gosh, the one that I'm thinking about the most. I only said I hate you to my mom one time. I think I thought it. I'm sure I thought it, but it never came out of my mouth except one night in Miami. And we go out and my mom just didn't have any boundaries. My mom had no, we talk boundaries a lot now. We weren't talking about that 10 years ago, but we were talking all the boundaries. But by today's definition, my mom had no boundaries and she just did what she wanted and that's how she lived life.
Boundaries with her in terms of her own, the way
Oh,
that she entered the
herself,
world.
the way that she entered the world, the way that she entered other people's space, you know. Oh, yeah. So we're in Miami. I'm there for a work trip. She decides to tag along, and I'm like, okay, but you have got to behave. I am here for a work. Can you imagine having to tell your mom that? Like, you have got to
I
behave. Don't
love that. I
do
love
not
that.
embarrass me. I was like, I'm in the rental car and I'm giving her all of these disclaimers. I'm like, listen, I've got to do this. I've got to do this. And I could see it in her face. She was there for a good time. And I
She
said,
was
oh
like,
no,
listen, you can say what you want, but
we are in for trouble. And we go out one night. I've got a big presentation the next day. And I'm like, mom, we can't stay out long. And she's like, yeah. Anyway, so we go out and we're drinking and it's South Beach, Miami, and it is fun and the energy's high. And we run into two of my coworkers.
uh-huh.
And I'm like, oh no, 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 no. And I see it in her eyes. I'm like, oh no, she thinks he's cute and he's young. My mom, like, young men. She didn't care how old you were. We go to the bar, long story short. I turn around at one point during the night and they are making out. He is my age. And I am pissed. I am like, it is time to go. Check, please. I get her in that taxi and I am mad. I'm like, I told you, I needed
To
you to act a
behave
certain way.
yourself.